there, visual economic community. I am sure that every one of you, absolutely all of you, have heard about the Great Resignation, a strange phenomenon that seems to be happening within the US economy. Since the pandemic began, millions and millions of Americans have been unexpectedly leaving their jobs in droves. And no, I'm not talking about them being fired. I'm talking about them resigning voluntarily, receiving absolutely nothing in return. Specifically, from March 2020 to February 2022, more than 70 million resignations have been counted in the States, a rather surprising figure, considering that the total number of jobs is approximately 150 million. In other words, in less than 2 years, there have been resignations equivalent to almost 50% of all the jobs in the country. So the question is obvious. What the hell is going on with North Americans? Is it something exclusive to the United States, or something extendable to regions such as Europe or Latin America? More importantly, is the Great Resignation a danger, something to be afraid of? Or is it perhaps an economic symptom that hides something much more unexpected? Well, in today's video, Visual Economic fans, we will explain in detail the truth behind this phenomenon. Let me ask you a question. Don't you think it's a bit too much of a coincidence that the avalanche of resignations started just after the COVID-19 outbreak? Well, I don't know about you, but I assure you that most of the traditional media trying to explain why this Great Resignation is taking place did not find it a coincidence at all. And hold on to your chair, the main arguments offered to explain this phenomenon go something like this.
The pandemic and remote working have made us workers really see the wonderful parts of life, made us understand that work is not the most important thing at all, man, and that we must reimagine it and even resign in order to be better as one with our environment.
And no, don't think we're exaggerating.
It's not just about getting another job or leaving the workforce. It's about taking control of your work and personal life and making a big decision, resigning, to accomplish that. This is a moment of empowerment for workers, one that will continue well into the new year. A silver lining of this horrible pandemic is that the world of work will take a huge positive step forward for workers. Work will fit around our personal lives rather than our personal lives fitting around work. Anthony Klotz, Bloomberg, 10th of May, 2021.
As you can easily imagine, although these arguments sound very positive, cheerful, and even a bit hippie, the truth is that, here on Visual Economic, we are not convinced at all. And keep in mind that this is not to say that there are not people who have rethought the direction their lives are taking as a result of this pandemic, but to suggest that this is the cause of millions and millions of people deciding to resign at almost the same time, I don't know. That sounds like something very different could be happening. So why exactly are these pandemic and life rethinking arguments not strong enough to explain the Great Resignation? Well, first of all, because if the cause had been a psychological change after the pandemic, the Great Resignation would have occurred all over the world and not almost exclusively in the United States. In fact, in countries particularly affected by the coronavirus, such as Spain, just the opposite is happening. Resignations are lower than before the pandemic.
21st of November, 2021. The Great Resignation does not reach Spain despite the frustration of some workers. Figures from the Ministry of Social Security indicate that the number of voluntary departures submitted between 2020 and 2021 is below pre-pandemic figures.
In line with the pandemic arguments, another explanation given for the resignations is that, for health reasons, to avoid the virus, many people are leaving their jobs to minimize person-to-person contact. And I ask you, if this is so, which age group do you think would be more likely to resign under these circumstances? Surely the older ones, right? Well, the most curious thing of all is that a Harvard study found that older people not only are not resigning more, but that after the pandemic, they are resigning less. Meanwhile, those who are resigning are basically people between 30 and 45 years of age. Not even the youngest ones. Intriguing, don't you think? So it is not only that the Great Resignation is affecting the United States without reaching other countries, nor that this is a decision that is being made almost exclusively by middle-aged people, but also that within the United States, it is not happening in all economic sectors. In particular, the sectors that have suffered the most from this problem are retail trade, health services, and food services, where up to 7 out of every 100 workers have resigned every month. However, in sectors such as finance, the resignation rate is even lower today than it was in February 2020, with only 1 resignation per 100 workers. And it's right here, where some sectors are more affected than others, where the key to this whole issue lies. It's where the real origin of the Great Resignation originates. Why? I'll take a look. In this graph, you can see the number of jobs offered in the United States before the pandemic. After the first quarantine, as you might expect, that number plummeted. But look at what happened just a few months later. The number of jobs offered by companies has almost doubled in just 1 year. Currently, there are about 11 million job offers that are not being satisfied, but pay attention because that's not all. On top of this data, we must point out that in the United States, there are only 7 million people looking for a job. In other words, there are about 3 jobs on offer for every 2 job seekers. The maths doesn't add up. But do you want to know the best part? Can you guess in which sectors there is the biggest difference between the number of new jobs and the number of unemployed? Well, indeed, it is precisely the sectors we mentioned a moment ago, in the sectors where resignation rates are highest.
A turn of the tables.
You see, the fact that the sectors with the highest number of job offers are also the ones with the highest number of resignations is no coincidence at all. And yes, I know what you're thinking. If there are jobs, good salaries, and things are going well, why are people resigning? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Well, no, because when things are going well and there are many companies making money, what happens is that there are not enough workers for them to continue growing. Let me explain. Imagine you have a bar and you want to hire a bartender so that you can serve more people and make more money. But oh, surprise, all the bartenders in the area already have a job, precisely because most businesses are doing well. So what you will have to do is to offer a higher salary than what the other bars pay, and thus steal from their bartending staff. Those bartenders, when they see that you pay more, will resign and come to your bar to work. It's the market, my friends. The reason behind the Great Resignation is much simpler than it may seem at first glance. Companies are competing to pick up workers in a context where job offers are completely overwhelming the labor market. Don't forget that, as we have seen earlier, there are almost 4 million more jobs than workers available. Proof of this enormous competition is that not only have resignations been increasing, but also that workers' salaries grew by 4.5% in December 2021, which, to give you an idea, is the highest figure recorded since June 2001. That is, for more than 20 years. In any case, if what is causing the big resignation is the competition between companies and the excessive increase in job offers, what is it that has caused this to happen in the first place? What are the root causes that are making companies hire like crazy? Well, here we can highlight at least 3 key factors. Firstly, with quarantine, many people were able to save money by being locked up at home, and with that savings, they were able to spur the creation of new and small businesses that now compete for workers. This explanation would illustrate quite well why the food and retail sectors are among the hardest hit by the Great Resignation, as they are actually among the sectors where it is easiest to set up new businesses, setting up a bar, for example. Secondly, the increase in public spending and inflation would have led some companies to make extraordinary profits, and thus have more capacity to compete for employees. An example of this is the increase in spending on health services resulting from the pandemic. With more income and more work, health facilities were able to hire more staff, and were able to offer higher salaries. But wait a minute, because while these 2 reasons may make a lot of sense, we can still find a third, even simpler reason. It is possible that the pandemic had nothing to do with the Great Resignation, but was simply the natural result of the characteristics of the US labor market. Look at this graph. In fact, resignations in the United States have been rising steadily since 2010. Although the recent increase in resignations has been very steep, the truth is that if we look at the overall trend, it is not out of line with the norm. It is possible that during the first months of the quarantine, some people were afraid to resign, and when things calmed down, they all resigned at once, thus returning the market to the trend it had been following. Be that as it may, if we have to draw conclusions from all this, here are a few. 1. The big resignation. Perhaps not as big, nor as worrisome as many predict, and it certainly does not seem to indicate a widespread change in mindset. 2. What enables the Great Resignation is that there is business competition, and that employers are free to compete for their workers, which also seems to be the key to higher wages. And 3. If the Great Resignation has not reached most European countries, it is probably because their labour model is completely different from that of the United States. In Europe, models abound that do not give rise to entrepreneurial development or innovation by small freelancers. The Great Resignation seems to be more a natural effect of the US economy than a post-pandemic revolution. Now then, it's your turn. Are you concerned about the big resignation phenomenon? Why do you think that the US is such a favorable environment for companies to compete fiercely for workers? Would you be willing to resign from your current job to find a better alternative? Leave your answers in the comments below. And of course, don't forget that here at VisualEconomik, we release new videos every week. So subscribe to this channel and hit that little bell icon so you don't miss any of our updates. And if you liked this video, of course, please like it. I'll see you in the next one. See you next time.